The gym leaders of Johto are, well, kind of bad. And so today we're going to be fixing all 8 gym leaders as part of an ongoing series to make the perfect crystal ROM hack. The first gym leader we're looking at today is Falkner with a level 7 Pidgey and a level 9 Pidgeotto. And I always felt like Game Freak made a really weird choice with this, because Gen 2 introduced 2 new bird type Pokemon that could have easily made it into this gym. Hoothoot only gets a slight acknowledgement in the entire game, making appearances in Sprout Tower, while we only ever see Natu's evolved form Xatu in the Elite Four. Now, my goal with Falkner, and all the gym leaders for that matter, is to introduce a bit of Gen 2 to the team while not making him feel completely foreign. The purpose of this ROM hack is to elevate the experience of Crystal while keeping it true to the roots of its original design. And so for that reason, we'll start by keeping the level 7 Pidgey as his lead, but we'll give a quick attack to make it a little more fearsome. Second, we're going to add in a level 7 Natu to his team with Peck, Leer, and Confusion. The purpose of this is to provide slightly more move diversity while giving the Natu line a little more exposure. And lastly, we're gonna remove his Pidgeotto. See, the reason I don't like this here is that it got a ton of exposure in the original games. Now, as I stated in the first part of this video series, Gen 2 is really just an extension of the first games, and you see very often in this gen that they tried to elevate Gen 1 Pokemon which previously hadn't been given a spot to shine. Pidgeotto is neither Gen 2 nor underrepresented in the original games, so I want to replace Falkner's ace with a level 9 Noctowl with the moves Tackle, Growl, Mudslap, and Peck. This sets the stage with a Johto ace and also gives a slight difficulty boost to the gym. Now next up is the Azalea Town leader Bugsy. You may not know this, but the reason Bugsy has unevolved level 14 Cocoons is that he is actually trying to do research on them. Normally they evolve at 10, and he's trying to figure out whether they can learn additional moves past that. Now sure, mind blown, but not only did this fly over my head for many years, I think it's an incredibly dumb choice for a gym leader, as it just makes the fight really easy. So because of this, Kakuna and Metapod are out. I also felt like the Ledian and Ariados line get completely snuffed in this game, and so I propose they replace the Cocoons. Bugsy will now lead with a Ledian that knows Tackle, Supersonic, Comet Punch, and Light Screen. This will give him some utility and protection against fire Pokemon, which will be much more available in this ROM hack. If you want to know more of the changes, make sure to subscribe and follow along to this video series. Now his Ariados will have the moves Poison Sting, Scary Face, Double Team, and Pursuit. And while there isn't much we can give it, in this case it will at least now have a chance to shine. You only encounter Ariados in the Elite Four, where its stats are already far too weak to make any difference. But in the second gym, it will actually be strong enough to make a respectable stand. And lastly, Bugsy is going to keep his Scyther. I actually really like the choice of Scyther as Bugsy's ace, and I don't want to change it. Scyther was severely underrepresented in Generation 1, and so I respect that Game Freak gave it a spotlight in the sequel. It's a great ace. It's reminiscent of Bugsy to me. I don't want to take that from him. You know, like making a perfect ROM hack that stays true to Crystal is not just adding, it's making sure to keep things as well. And I think keeping it as the ace helps establish the connectedness of the two regions that define this game. The next up is Whitney, and this is a tricky call. On one hand, her ability is of legend, and we don't want to make too many changes. So because of this, she's going to still lead with her level 18 Clefairy and end with her dreaded Miltank. Another one of my goals with this series is to generally just make this ROM hack harder. If you're watching this video, you're probably pretty deep into Pokemon, and you probably don't find Crystal that hard anymore. We're also going to be making a ton more Pokemon available. And so to balance with that, we obviously need to make these gym leaders harder. And to do that, Whitney's going to have a team of 4. She's going to lead with Clefairy, but the changes we're going to make will be in the middle of her team. Now, Sentret sees some love in this gym, and it was always weird to me that we never saw a Furret on Whitney's team. Probably because she was hard enough as is, but I can't remember a single instant of Furret in Gen 2. So we're going to add that to the team, and we're going to make it a beast with the moves Pursuit, Ice Punch, Slam, and Quick Attack. Ice Punch is there for coverage, and Pursuit is there to deal with any cheeky ghost users. The other normal type that sees no love in Gen 2 is Togetic. So her third Pokemon, second in command to the tank, will be just that. While it's not a great Pokemon Pokemon, its move pool of Swift, Sweet Kiss, Charm, and Fly will nerf you so that you can't cheesily set up before Miltank comes out. Also, it is still early enough in the game where Togetic's stats will hold up. With all these changes, really, Whitney just becomes more complicated. It feels like the same fight, but now you just get more worn down before Miltank can come out. You can't abuse things like double slap rage interactions or try to build up your own rollout since Togetic's Fly will force you to miss. These changes make Whitney even harder and cement her as the climactic fight of the early game. Now, next up we move to Ecruteak City. Morty's Gengar always made for a relatively difficult fight, but it's always felt like the rest of his team was underwhelming. Since the entire gym is the Poison Ghost Ghastly family, this means it's extremely vulnerable to a normal type that knows Mud Slap or Dig. My main goal is to make Morty and the Ghost Gym a little bit less linear. To start, Morty is going to keep his iconic Dream Eater Gengar since it's the best ghost type available. We'll also permit him to have one Haunter with the updated move pool of Nightshade, Curse, Hypnosis, and the interesting move Nightmare. To make this Haunter slightly more formidable, it's equipped with a Gold Berry to heal Curse HP. It's also worth noting that in Gen 2, Ghost type was physical, and Gengar had really high special attack, so we will be doing something in another video to show off how we fix that conundrum. Basically, it's just gonna make Gengar even better. Now, another issue with Morty's secondary poison typing was that it was always extremely susceptible to psychics. Despite Morty also having type advantage, a Kadabra with Psybeam could sweep all but his Gengar. So to add team diversity and fix counter psychic types, we're giving him a Houndoom with the moves Bite, Smog, Roar, and Flame Wheel. Sure, it's not a ghost type, but I think a Devil Fire Dog does well enough to keep with the theme. Houndoom is also going to add some much needed bite to his team to help with the difficulty. Lastly, as Morty's second in command, we'll be making the very obvious choice of throwing Misdreavus into the mix. Now, sure, it's not strong enough to be his ace, unfortunately, but with the moves Shadow Ball, Pain Split, Confuse Ray, Perish Song, and pure ghost typing, Misdreavus is not a total pushover. Look, it was always so weird to me that this didn't appear in the original games, and so I plan to finally rectify this. Overall, though, these changes give a modern take to Morty's team, while staying true to our goal of using both Johto and Kanto Pokemon. With this ROM hack, there are some limitations I must impose due to simply my limited ability as a modder. After Morty, the game originally tried to give you two optional routes, but in doing so, this either makes Price or Chuck completely laughable. To simply fix this issue, in this ROM hack, the 5th gym leader will be Chuck as it canonically is supposed to be. Jasmine will be 6, Price will be 7 with an adequately leveled team. But moving back to Chuck, boasting 2 Gen 1 fighting Pokemon, this might be the most forgettable gym leader in the entire series. His bland team is really the launch point of Johto's terrible mid-game lull, and with this hack, I intend to entirely fix that. Chuck is going to start off this fight with a Hitmontop. This is another one of those Game Freak decisions that just felt so weird. While I appreciate that Hitmontop at least made it to Bruno's team, it really felt like a choice that was too little too late. With such a middling move pool, Hitmontop just doesn't belong on an Elite Four team. But as a brand new Johto Pokemon, it actually makes the perfect lead to the 5th gym leader. Its stats and move pool just really fit into a mid-game fight. Stacked with Triple Kick, Rolling Kick, Dig, and Pursuit to deal with Psychics, it's just a very solid choice here. Now, the next Johto Pokemon to be given a spotlight here will be Sudowoodo. While not fighting type, this thing not only learns Low Kick, but also sports a fighter stance and build. Even better is its ability to learn Rock Slide makes it a perfect counter to fighting types, which could previously sweep the poor chubby fighter. Finishing it off with Thunder Punch for water coverage and Feint Attack for Psychics, Sudowoodo marks the true turning point towards an engaging mid-game fight. Now next up, we gotta add Heracross. This bug fighting Pokemon is one of the stars of Johto, has 3 potential appearances, and doesn't show up for any of them. Its purpose on this fight is to deal damage, and with the moves Reversal, Takedown, Headbutt, and the Psychic one-shotting Mega Horn, this thing will decimate you if you're slow to take it down. Now, lastly, I again need to reiterate, I want to stay in the spirits of Gen 2. This game will always be a Kanto sequel, and to make the team entirely Johto Pokemon, it doesn't feel right to me. I want to make it immersive, but not to the point of being fan fiction. So for that reason, Chuck's 4th Pokemon will in fact be Primeape. We'll let it keep the fighting moves Low Kick and Karate Chop, but this thing needs coverage. It fortunately can learn both Ice Punch and Thief for coverage against flyers and psychics, so that's perfect. And lastly, since I do have respect for the guy, Chuck can keep his Poliwrath Mind Reader Ace exactly as is. Poliwrath was another one of those underutilized Gen 2 Pokemon, so I'm happy to give it some recognition in a game that is still a celebration of Gen 1. So now complete with 5 type coverage equipped fighters, Chuck's team goes from a complete standstill in pacing to a spike that grabs you by the throat and says welcome to the ultimate version of Crystal. And keeping up with that difficulty increase, Jasmine is also going to have 5 Pokemon, and let me tell you, this is now one of the hardest fights in the entire game. Jasmine was just introduced in Generation 2, and in my opinion, Jasmine's team comp of Steelix and 2 Magnetons is a horribly missed opportunity. Skarmory, who could never have been on Faulkner's team, but also never saw any action, is now going to get a chance to shine as her lead. Complete with Sandstorm, Protect, Mudslap, and Drill Peck, this defensive tank will whittle you down slowly. Next, she will retain 1 Magneton with its original moveset, except this time we add Rain Dance into the mix to nerf fire and also set the stage for her next Pokemon, Ampharos. Look, I know its purpose was to shine in the Lighthouse, and we could certainly throw Fortress into the mix. But just seeing how tied it is to Jasmine, it really felt right to me. It also provides type variation so that she isn't so weak to fire, whereas throwing on Fortress would just be like a free one-shot basically. Plus with Thunderbolt, Light Screen, Cotton Spore, and Thunder, the Ampharos will pack a deadly punch. Now, if you manage to make it through all that, it's time to face not just one, but Jasmine's dual aces. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Caesar, one of the 2 Metal Coat Maestros, and this man doesn't even get an appearance in Gen 2. This is a step too far from the makers of GSC, and I intend to avenge this slight. Caesar demands justice, and with a level to match Steelix, he will find it. Complete with Slash, Swords Dance, Steel Wing, and Light Screen. In my playtests, this was the scariest Pokemon in the entire Gym League. Now, of course, if you do manage to make it through all that, we have his evolutionary steel counterpart, Steelix, to finish the fight. Steelix was always good, but its move pool kind of sucked, so this time we're not holding back at all, giving it the moves Crunch, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Iron Tail. Overall, Jasmine is probably the most satisfying gym leader we created. The idea of letting both of the 2 Metal Coat evolves be her aces is just like a fun concept. I just think the team fits really well together with amazing coverage and cool characters. But that is certainly not to say it's the most important change on this video. Because of all the gym leaders, it's Price that gets done the dirtiest, but is also Price that is the hardest to fix. My man is the 7th gym leader and yet is hardly stronger than the 5th. So because of this, we need to make some really big changes. Unfortunately for us, there are 3 problems with that. 1 is that the Ice type is defensively very bad. 2 is that a lot of the Pokemon that get Ice type are also kind of bad. And 3rd is that 3 of the Ice type Pokemon available in this game have the exact same typing of Water Ice. So I also want to preface that this is not a final list. I'm very open to suggestions, and that is especially true when it comes to Price, because I don't know if I'm that happy with this team. So to start off, Price is going to lead with Delibird. It's not a very good Pokemon, but it is a Gen 2 Ice type, and we kind of have to use it. Now we are going to give Delibird some slight stat buffs, and we'll highlight that in another video, so make sure to subscribe and follow along. This slightly buffed Delibird will, however, keep its gimmick energy. Not only will it have Present, but along with Icy Wind, we're also giving it Rest and Sleep Talk to double down on its chaotic nature. Next up is Jinx. There's not a ton of great ice types, but Jinx is one of the few strong enough that will really help out this team. It also did get a baby this generation, so I feel like it's a very appropriate choice. We've given it Ice Punch, Psychic, Lovely Kiss, and Rain Dance to fend off the fire types and set up for our 3rd Pokemon, Lapras. Extremely bulky, this was a staple on Lorelei's team in Gen 1, but only saw 1 major appearance in the post-game of Crystal, so I wanted to give it a spot to shine in Johto. Lapras will come equipped with Surf, Ice Beam, Snore, and Rest. And this is kind of where the list devolves a bit, because originally Price had Dugong and Seal, and Lapras is basically just better Dugong. So that was really the big dilemma for me, is like, do we want to throw in Cloyster, Water Ice, Dugong, water, ice, Lapras, water, ice. And to me, that's just like a very uninteresting team. And so instead of that arrangement, I decided to add a different water type in the form of Tentacruel. I really like Tentacruel on this team because it brings new capabilities to the table. It learns Ice Beam to fit into the niche while also getting Reflect, Surf, and Sludge Bomb to make it an offensive and defensive tank. Again, open to suggestions. Maybe we should just make this Cloyster, but it just feels, I don't know, kind of lazy. Now, second to his ace is going to be Sneasel. Originally another very underwhelming Pokemon in Generation 2, I will also be fixing its stats in another video to more closely reflect Weavile so that it's not a complete pushover. We'll also be swapping its attack and special attack so that it can actually land a decent hit with moves like Thief, Metal Claw, and Blizzard. And lastly, Price will keep his Gen 2 ace, Piloswine. This time, however, it gets Headbutt, Earthquake, Rock Smash, and Blizzard. Like I said, it's not my favorite team, and I'm definitely open to suggestions, but rather than having 3 water ice types, I figured this would make for a more memorable and engaging fight. And lastly, we're gonna make some changes to the final gym. Claire is the proclaimed Dragon Master of Johto, but I always found her team of 3 Dragonairs and a Kingdra quite boring. It's not that she wasn't hard. My problem was more that it was just too repetitive. Kingdra is a great ace and is definitely staying the same, but I just feel like the 8th gym should have more variation. Like 3 Dragonairs in a row, even though they have different moves, is just really boring. Now, fixing Claire is a very difficult task because we don't want her to clash with Lance's team, which is very shortly after this. So in order for this team to fully make sense, you're going to have to watch my video outlining the Elite Foreign Champion, where I explain the ethos of my changes to Lance. But to summarize, in this remake, Lance is going to be less of a pure Dragon Master who gets wrecked by a single water ice type, and will instead have more of a balanced team that is kind of composed of mythical beasts, if you will. In doing so, that makes Lance more difficult while also opening up better possibilities for Claire. So Claire is still going to lead with a Dragonair, but this one will know Thunderbolt, Thunder Wave, Flamethrower, and Dragon Breath. This basically gives it ultimate coverage against anything that would know an ice move. Now, next, just like in the remakes, we'll give her a Gyarados, complete with Bite, Surf, Strength, and Dragon Breath. Gyarados feels like an obvious choice for this team, really just balances it out, and you know, it's a very strong Pokemon. Now, third, we're actually going to give her an Aerodactyl. If you disagree with this choice, if you think it feels weird, totally open to hear your guys' suggestions, but it is a winged dragon-like creature, and it's really strong with Wing Attack, Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Dragon Breath. It also won't be making an appearance on Lance's team, so we have a spot for it. Now, fourth in line will be another Dragonair. This is again to keep Claire from not feeling too foreign, but we've put different Pokemon in between them so that it's just not the same Pokemon twice. Now, this one will also have Thunder Wave, Flamethrower, and Thunderbolt, but we'll swap Dragon Breath on this one with Outrage for extra oomph. The second in line is Charizard. It's the other choice that I'm open to changing. It fits the Dragon build and helps to give this team variety. Having 2 Dragon Masters in the same game is a really tough thing to balance. But of course, to finish Claire out, she will finish with her menacing ace Kingdra. With the appropriate leveling, these changes take Johto from a middling walkthrough to a very interesting challenge, while not sacrificing the integrity of what Generation 2 was. These changes are part of my ongoing series to build a ROM hack to turn Generation 2 into the masterpiece it deserves to be. Subscribe to follow along, and make sure to check out the other topics.